I never thought I'd be the guy writing something like this, but here I am. My name's Jake, and I'm just trying to make sense of what hit me like a freight train during what was supposed to be a relaxing family vacation. My wife Emma and I have been together for nearly 8 years. We got married young, and for the most part I thought everything was solid. Sure, she's got a bitchy streak sometimes. She's always quick with a sharp comment, and she loves to act like she's the smartest person in the room. But I loved her, or at least I thought I did. This trip was supposed to be just a week away from everything. No work, no stress, just us, the kids, and my brother Mark and his wife Lisa. We've done family vacations before, and honestly, I never suspected anything was off. Emma was always the perfect wife, or so I thought. She'd been acting weird lately, though. Shorter with her answers, avoiding eye contact at times, and sometimes I'd catch her texting on her phone way more than usual, even in front of me. I brushed it off, telling myself maybe she was just busy or stressed. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. It all started on the third night. We were sitting around the fire pit, drinking and joking, when Emma suddenly went inside to use the bathroom. She was gone a little longer than usual. When I got up to check, I noticed her phone on the table screen lit up with a message. I didn't mean to look, but curiosity got the better of me. I glanced down and saw a text from someone named Ben that said, "Can't wait to see you tonight, babe. Let's make it unforgettable." My stomach clenched. I knew that name. It was her brother's best friend's nickname, and I'd overheard Emma mention him casually a few times, but I never thought she'd actually be cheating with him. I waited until she came back, my mind racing. She acted normal, flirty, maybe a little guilty, but I couldn't be sure. Later that night, I followed her when she went to the bathroom again, and I saw her sneak out of our cabin. She went down to the beach, and I decided I'd follow quietly. I hid behind some bushes, heart pounding. And what I saw froze me in place. Emma was kissing Ben, not just a quick peck either. They were deep into it, hands everywhere, bodies pressed together. My wife, the woman I loved, was doing this with her own brother's good friend. It didn't make sense, it didn't feel real, but there it was, crystal clear in the moonlight. I just stood there, watching them, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. My mind was a blur of shock, rage, and heartbreak. How could she do this? How could she betray me like that with her own brother's friend? My wife swore she loved me, that she'd never cheat, and yet there she was, doing something so filthy, so disgusting, right under my nose. I didn't even know what to do in that moment. Part of me wanted to yell, to run out and confront her then and there, but I was frozen. I just stayed hidden, watching her slip back into the cabin as if nothing had happened. When I finally made it back to our cabin, I was trembling. I didn't sleep that night, replaying everything in my head on repeat. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I could have been so blind. I felt sick, betrayed, and more than anything, I felt stupid. How could Emma lie so effortlessly? She always acted like she loved me, but the truth was she'd been lying right in my face the entire time. I thought I knew her, thought I knew us. Turns out I was just fooling myself. The next morning I barely slept. My head was pounding, and every time I closed my eyes I saw that kiss again, felt the betrayal all over again. I stayed in bed longer than I should have, just trying to process what I'd seen. When Emma finally woke up, she acted like everything was normal, smiling, acting sweet, asking if I was okay. I couldn't look her in the eyes. The facade she put on, the way she pretended nothing happened, made me sick. I wanted to scream, to call her out right then, but I knew I needed a plan. I needed to be smart about this. After breakfast, I told her I needed some space, just to get my head straight. I went for a walk along the beach, trying to calm down, but my mind was racing. I kept thinking about how she lied to me, how she'd been sneaking around, and how she seemed so calm and innocent even after what I'd seen. That bitchy attitude of hers. She's always been good at hiding her true self behind a mask, and now I knew the mask was cracking. I started digging around in my head, trying to piece together everything. I remembered the messages on her phone, the way she looked at Ben when she thought I wasn't paying attention. It all clicked. They'd been doing this for a while, I'm pretty sure, probably even before the trip started. I wondered how many times she'd lied, how many nights she'd sneaked around behind my back. The thought made my blood boil. I felt the sting of betrayal so deep I wasn't sure I'd ever recover from it. Later that day, I found my brother Mark sitting on the porch of the cabin, looking relaxed. I pulled him aside. I didn't tell him everything right then, just enough to let him know I knew something was off. He looked surprised, confused at first, but I saw the concern in his eyes as I described what I'd seen. That's when I decided I had to confront Emma directly, but I also knew I couldn't do it blindly. I had to gather evidence, plan my next move carefully. That evening, Emma tried to act normal again, but I noticed her fidgeting, her nervous glances at her phone. She was hiding something, I was sure of it. I decided I'd wait until she thought I'd let it go, that she'd feel safe enough to slip up again. Meanwhile, I watched her, kept track of her phone, and listened to every word she said. I was starting to feel like I was losing my mind, questioning everything, wondering if I'd missed the signs all along. It was a terrible feeling, being so betrayed by someone you trusted with your life. What made it worse was Emma's attitude. She's always been kind of a bitchy, manipulative woman. She'd swear she loved me, then turn around and lie straight to my face. I could see the defiance in her eyes when I looked at her now, like she thought she could get away with it forever. That's the worst part, knowing she's not the person I thought she was. I was feeling cursed, angry, humiliated, and broken all at once. I honestly didn't know how much more of this I could take, but I knew I couldn't just walk away without some kind of proof, some way to make her face what she'd done. By the next day, I knew I had enough. I couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine, not after what I saw. I started planning my confrontation, but I also knew I needed more evidence, something concrete that would make her admit it, or at least leave her no room to deny. I spent the rest of the day sneaking around, checking her phone, her bag, even her suitcase when she wasn't looking. I wasn't proud of it, but I needed to see the truth. That night I found what I was looking for. A series of messages between Emma and Ben, full of flirty comments, promises to meet up after the trip, and even some explicit talk. I felt like I'd been sucker punched all over again. She had been lying to me for months, maybe longer. The worst part was how blatantly she lied. The messages were so obvious, so open. She didn't even try to hide it anymore. This wasn't some innocent flirtation, it was a full-blown affair. I sat in the dark, clutching her phone, trying to process the betrayal. My mind raced with anger, hurt, confusion. How could she do this? How could she lie so effortlessly? I wanted to break something, to scream at her, but I knew I had to stay calm if I wanted to handle this right. I decided I'd confront her that night, face to face, and get some answers. I couldn't keep going through the mental torment of knowing and not doing anything. When Emma finally came to bed, I was already awake, waiting. I called her out, told her I knew everything. Her face immediately went blank, then she started with her usual bullshit, saying I was overreacting, that I was paranoid, that I was imagining things. She threw out phrases like, "You're so insecure," or "You don't trust me," trying to turn it around on me. She claimed I was crazy for thinking she'd cheat on me with Ben, her own brother's best friend. I looked her dead in the eyes and told her she could lie all she wanted, but I had the evidence right there on her phone, and I was going to be some fool anymore. Her reaction was so typical. She got defensive, started yelling, calling me possessive and jealous. She said I was ruining everything, that I was imagining things because I didn't want to face the truth, that she was just a bit of fun, and I was too insecure to handle the fact that she still loved me deep down. She told me I was overreacting, that she swears she loves me, and that I was making a huge deal out of nothing. That pissed me off even more. How stupid did she think I was? She could lie all she wanted, but I knew better now. I knew I'd caught her in her own web of lies, and I wasn't going to fall for her bullshit anymore. The shock and rage just kept building. I felt like I was on the verge of losing my mind. All those years I spent trusting her, believing in us, gone in an instant. That moment, I realized I could never look at her the same way again. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I loved, she was a liar, a cheat, and someone I couldn't save from herself. The anger was consuming, but underneath it all there was this deep, aching sadness. I'd lost my wife, probably forever, and I didn't even know how to start healing from that. I just knew I had to get out before I did something I'd regret. The confrontation that night felt like the climax of a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Emma kept denying everything, trying to persuade me that I was wrong, that I'd misunderstood, that I was just jealous. She was so bitchy about it, her tone sharp, impatient, like I was the one doing her wrong. She called me insecure, pathetic, and said I was overreacting because I couldn't handle the truth. I remember her words vividly, how she dismissed my feelings as if they were nothing. I was so angry I wanted to shake her, to scream at her that I wasn't some fool who'd be played like this. But I stayed calm, or at least I tried to. I told her I had the evidence, and she just scoffed, acting like I was some paranoid lunatic. That's when she threw in the "I swear I love you" stuff, like that was supposed to make me believe her. I looked at her, feeling a strange mix of disgust and heartbreak. How could someone lie so effortlessly, so convincingly? I wanted to believe her, I really did, but I couldn't ignore what I'd seen, what I'd uncovered. The truth had a way of destroying every illusion I'd held about her. She kept insisting it was just sex, that she didn't mean anything by it, and that it was a mistake, a stupid, impulsive mistake. She told me she was bored, that I wasn't enough anymore, that Ben was just a fun distraction. That's when I really lost it. How could she think that cheating with her own brother's friend was just fun? How could she say she loved me one second and then do something so disgusting the next? My mind was spinning, trying to process her lies, her excuses. I felt so betrayed, so humiliated, like I was the biggest idiot in the world for ever trusting her. After she finished her tirade, I just stared at her, feeling completely hollow. I knew I couldn't keep pretending she was innocent, that somehow she was the victim in all this. The woman I married, the woman I loved, was nothing but a manipulative bitch who lied to my face. I realized I couldn't stay in that room, in that relationship, not anymore. The thing that hurt the most was knowing she didn't even care about what she'd done. She was just mad I found out, mad I'd threatened to leave her. She acted like she was the victim, but I saw her for what she really was. A liar, a cheat, someone I couldn't trust anymore. As I sat there, staring at her, my mind was racing for what to do next. I knew deep down I couldn't stay with her. Not after this. The betrayal ran too deep. I didn't want to be the fool who stuck around and kept getting hurt. I felt like my entire world had just crumbled, and I didn't know how I'd pick up the pieces. I had to get out, but I also knew I'd need a plan. Because if she was willing to cheat on me with her own brother's best friend, what else was she capable of? I needed to think carefully about how I was going to handle this, how I was going to get through. The aftermath of this absolute nightmare. The days that followed were a blur. I knew I couldn't stay in the same house, not with that betrayal hanging over my head. I packed my bags quietly while Emma was out. She never suspected a thing. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of knowing she'd driven me to this point. When she finally found out I was leaving, her reaction was just as I expected. She acted like I was overreacting, like I was crazy for even thinking she'd do something so terrible. She called me possessive, paranoid, and tried to gaslight me into believing I was the one causing all the trouble. I wasn't about to let her twist this around. I told her I found the messages, I saw her kiss Ben, and I knew her real face now. She flipped out, screaming and calling me every name in the book. Her bitchy attitude was in full display. She accused me of destroying her, of being jealous for no reason, and told me I was making a mountain out of a molehill. But I didn't care anymore. The truth was out, and I wasn't going to pretend like everything was fine. I was done. I left that night knowing I was going to stay with my brother for a while. I needed distance, clarity. It hurt so much to leave her, my wife, the woman I swore I'd spend my life with. But how could I stay with someone who lied so effortlessly, who cheated with her own brother's best friend? That betrayal cut deeper than anything I'd ever experienced. It was like my entire foundation had been destroyed, and I was just trying to hold on, trying to breathe through the pain. In the days that followed, I felt a strange mix of relief and despair. Part of me wanted to go back, to fix things, to pretend it never happened. But I knew better. Trust was shattered beyond repair, and I didn't want to keep living in a lie. The hardest thing was realizing I deserved better, someone who wouldn't lie, cheat, or betray me like that. Emma always played the victim, acting bitchy and dismissive, but she was the real obstacle to our happiness. I learned that sometimes love isn't enough to save a sinking ship. Sometimes you have to let go, even if it hurts like. Hell, I spent a lot of time questioning everything. My choices, her words, what I could have done differently. But ultimately, I understood that staying wouldn't fix anything. The trust was gone, and no amount of apologies or tears could bring it back. I decided I wouldn't be some fool clinging to a relationship built on lies. It was time for me to rebuild my life, piece by piece, even if the pain still lingers. I know I'll never forget what she did, but I also know I'll survive it. And maybe someday, I'll find someone who genuinely loves and respects me, not someone who cheats with her own brother's friend and then lies about it. Looking back now, I realize this whole ordeal changed me in ways I never expected. I used to believe that love, trust, and honesty were the foundation of any relationship, but after this, I see how fragile that foundation really is. Emma's betrayal didn't just shatter my marriage, it shattered my sense of security and made me question everything I thought I knew about her, about us. I used to think she was my soulmate, someone I could count on, but now I see her for what she really was, a manipulative, selfish woman who prioritized her own pleasure over everything else. What's been hardest is dealing with the aftermath, trust issues, anger, and the constant voice in my head replaying all her lies. But I also learned a lot about myself. I learned that I'm stronger than I thought, that I deserve respect and loyalty, and that I don't have to accept being a victim of someone's betrayal. Breaking free from her was painful, but it was necessary. I no longer second-guess my instincts or ignore the red flags. I've started rebuilding my life, slowly but surely, and I'm focusing on healing. I want anyone reading this who might be in a similar situation to know this. Don't ignore the signs, and don't stay just because you're scared to be alone. The pain of betrayal is brutal, but it's also a wake-up call. Better to face the truth now than to stay in a lie that will poison your soul forever. Trust is sacred, and once it's broken, it's nearly impossible to fix. But you can survive, you can move on, and you can find happiness again, maybe even better than before. Most importantly, I've learned that revenge isn't the answer. I didn't plan some elaborate scheme or try to hurt her back. I simply walked away, choosing my own dignity over revenge. That's what truly gives you strength, to walk away from someone who doesn't respect you and to start over, knowing you're worth more than their lies. I don't regret anything I've been through because it's made me clearer about what I want and what I deserve. Emma's betrayal will always be a part of my story, but it doesn't define me. I'm moving forward, and I'm finally at peace with what's behind me.